well aligned. So I'm going to kick off. So here we go. Let's get going. So this is very exciting for us. We use Google Sheets tons, and you used to be able to put notifications in Google Sheets and it just told you things have changed. That's all the information that you got. Whereas now you can specify what it tells you the changes are about. So I've got a new notification set up on a spreadsheet so that when one of our customers renews their Google Workspace subscription, I've got it to check that column that a date's changed, and I then know to contact them to offer them some more training. So it's, excuse me, it's absolutely fantastic for me. So it's a really, really good thing. So you haven't just got the general, there's a change happened, and you've got to root out what that change is by scrolling through the whole document. It actually is much more specific. So that's already there. I'm already using it. It's fantastic. That's the first one. This is an interesting one. I was trying to tease out when this might be the case, but it just occurred to me this morning. If you're not the manager of a chat space, you can't necessarily join people into that chat space. But what you can do now is you can get a copy of the link to the chat space and send it to someone who legitimately should be in the chat space, and they can then click on the link and they get the option to request the option to join that chat group space, rather, which is quite nice. It means it takes the pressure off the manager. They'll get the request and they just need to accept it, don't they? Then, so it's just kind of quite nice that anyone can invite if that's allowed to. So you can manage that, and they can choose to reject it, of course, as well. Should they want to. I'm just gonna...
Paul, sorry, I know you're flying through these. Could you just jump back one slide, please? Because I think there's something really important on that first update. The big change here for me is the fact that you can subscribe to notifications on behalf of others. In the past, when we were setting this up, everybody had to go in and subscribe to them themselves. The big change that's come with this is the fact that you can actually do it on behalf of other people. So it means that if you are setting a project up, you can basically do all that for them, not have them have to go and self-serve.
Yeah, no, I'm quite right. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that one.
No, sorry to interrupt, mate.
No, because it was new. I was only worried about myself. It's all about me. So I'd sorted my notifications up and forgotten that little bit. That's really good. That's exactly right. I'm delighted you tell people. That's good. Okay. So this also is quite good. You've got the option to turn this off if you don't want it. So if you're inactive on your Google Drive for a little while, you'll get an email notification that will summarize any changes to any significant documents with links to them, so you can go directly to them and have a look, see what's happened. And it says it summarizes them in the blog. I think what it means is it gives you an outline of which files have changed, so you might need to go and visit and things. So that's quite nice. You can go into your settings and turn that off if you think you don't want that, because you're there regularly enough. But you have to be inactive for a few days for it to kick in. But that's really quite nice. There's been notifications for us are crucial, so that's a really neat little thing as well. This is a little thing. I was just looking. I think our mine's already changed. Just Google's new material design version 3 they're going through redesigning everything. You've seen lots of updates in all the apps, and then there's now been an update on the toolbar at the bottom of Google Meet, and that's already in place. It should be on your screen as well. Add-ons in apps get used really extensively. Only until recently you couldn't add them into Android devices, so you've now got, if you've got things like Kahoot and all those kinds of things, those add-ons can now be added in to a mobile Google Meet, which is kind of quite nice. So you mean, because that previously then you would have been excluded from that Meet, or that part of the Meet when you couldn't do it. Yeah, I know. I've clicked it across. I think it's on the slide deck. Let me go to the slide deck and get rid of it. I know it's annoying, isn't it? You're quite right. I've just realised I clicked it thinking it would be, because I'm driving this from the Meet, and I've assumed it would, and it wouldn't close. There we go. I'll go back to the Meet today. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, that's an interesting point, actually. You know, the times when you always beat yourself up that you got the sharing permissions on a Google Doc wrong, that's telling me that at Google have got 2 sharing permissions on this wrong, because there's 2 videos that simply just won't play. We'll find out which ones they are in a moment. Okay, so these are all the updates from ISTI. Okay, this is English. When it says English only, the Americans forget that they aren't the only people that speak English. They mean English US only. So, and it's also, they haven't got GDPR sorted on this, but Gemini, their AI engine, is coming to teens, that's 13 plus, once they've got GDPR sorted. So that could be really interesting to see how that pans out, because that's kind of the next logical step, isn't it? You might well already have staff using it really extensively, and that's going to change that. You're going to allow it for students. Clearly, they need a Google Workspace a license in order for it to work, but and for it to work within their drives and things, then it'll also need to be inside. They'll need a Gemini license, I presume, because that's why they've got the Gemini buttons at the bottom. I'm assuming that's the case. I'm at TCAT, I mentioned that earlier, and they blocked the Google blog update, and I didn't know precisely how extensive that would be, so I couldn't actually go and check because that one's blocked. So you'll have to do that for yourself. We're a commercial organization, you know that. We've already got this option at the bottom of Gemini. At the very bottom, I don't know if it's such small print you can't see. It basically tells me that my prompts aren't used in the training of the Google Gemini model. Yeah, and that's coming to the all education accounts, free and paid. So if you go to gemini.google.com, it might be there for you now, but you might not. It's due to launch it says in the coming months, but they've announced it now. So quite when it'll be there for you, I don't know, but it is there for commercial organizations at the moment. So it's just not there for anybody else, but it is coming. So it should stop them. Then that's good. It gives you extra level of protection. Gemini is already in Docs, it's in Sheets, it's in Slides, it's in Mail, it's in Drive, and there's now a pilot running, and I'm assuming the link, I can't check, I'm sorry, the link will take you to a page where there'll be a form to fill out to request to join that pilot now. I really strongly, if you've got Gemini accounts, I'd really strongly encourage you to go and join that pilot, because that will be fascinating to see what AI is going to be doing inside Google Classroom. I have no idea precisely what it's going to do, but it's using the Learn LM. Learn LM, basically, Dave talked about this, was it last month you talked about it? You can collate a load of resources, and based on that, it will do something really clever for you, because it's one of Google's AI engines. And I'm presuming you put the resources in you need there, and then say, right, based on those resources, based on these criteria, can you now create me a lesson plan for that? So it's kind of a subset of a large language model, if you like. It's a focused lesson planning model, I presume. So that for me is very exciting. I've yet to see Learn LM. I'm on the wait list. There's another one, isn't it? Illuminate, which I'm also keen to have a look at, but I haven't had to go at that yet. Still waiting. So that's that. This is also really exciting. Google Vids, the option to create videos of your own, yeah, that you can use for students to use and for you to use. I mean, there's already bits of stuff. There's a screencast, isn't there, on a Chromebook? So you've got some kind of bits of video tools. You can screen record your screen anyway. That's already in Chromebooks. So I'm hoping this has got much kind of more, because Google currently haven't got video editing software. So I'm hoping that this will give us that, so you can actually start to create a whole host of useful education resources. But you can, it does, if you look, it says, oh, that's a request access, can't play the video. Okay, so that's coming soon. I don't know if there's a trial yet, I'm not aware, but Education Plus only though, or if you've got Gemini accounts, then it will also allow you that tool. Okay. If you've got that, it will actually create high quality videos for you, but you've got to have the Gemini account. Yeah, that's also coming from the same thing for Google Vids. So that's quite exciting. And that tool, you've got other tools that do that already. Only will create videos from your prompts. But so that Google now developed their own. Hopefully that will arrive soon. But you do need a Gemini license for that, and that will be built to Google Vids. That's very good. This is just tells you whether students have actually been into the document. And I'm always a bit nervous as an ex-educator about this whole thing about things that measure engagement. And I'm never quite sure that they do genuinely measure engagement. It'd be nice if they did. Invariably, lots of these tools that claim that just track either access of a document or activity, and you don't really know how on earth do you measure that engagement? I don't know. They're actually physically doing stuff, so I suppose they are engaged in that sense. But engagement in the learning, I'm worried that people think it's doing that, and I'm not sure that it is at all. So just to be aware that it's good. You get that bit more information. You know which students have been in there, which ones haven't, but actually not necessarily giving the implied claim that the statement of the slide gives you.
Does it have a frequency metric, or is it just a broad, this student has been in the document?
The thing is, just tells from the slide deck that they've saved from the ISTE deck. This is directly from the ISTE deck. They can say which students have not yet edited the attachment, which may be an indicator that they've needed additional support. So it's just, have they been in there and made any changes?
That's the key, isn't it? Sometimes they would see the assignment, they would open the document, and then they would go, I don't understand that, and just close it and go away. So the fact that they've edited it shows an element more engagement than just viewing it.
Nice.
But things like how long were they on it? You know, have they actually made any significant changes? Has it got larger? These kinds of things tells you that work's been done, rather than just because it could be a single edit. I don't know what I don't know yet how it's going to work. If it's literally a single edit that they press the space bar and then close it down, and that gets registered, this child's edited it, that's actually not very helpful, is it? So I'd hope that it'll be a substantial amount before it says yes, it's been edited in some way. But in the coming weeks, so that hopefully should be here by September. It might even be here by the end of the year. You never know. So we'll have a chance to look fairly soon.
There was a product called Classwork Zoom, I think it was called, that we used during lockdown, which actually allowed you to almost play a video or zoom in on areas of a video which showed the edit history of a document. So it was really good because you could see how engaged they were, and you could also see when they just pasted a large chunk of text into a document. So I wonder whether they're going to head down that route, because that was a really useful tool for us.
Yeah, and you're not going to use it every time. It was when you're suspicious. You think, oh, this doesn't look like this child's work. There was another one called Draft Back, which did a similar thing. Played a little mini video of the document, and you'd see 4 paragraphs suddenly appear in a split second. You think, there's a copy and paste if ever there was one. So it was really useful. But you did have to have Draft Back turned on and on the device. So anyway, this for me is fantastic. You can create student in the coming weeks. So hopefully be here for September. You can now create differentiated groups within Google Classroom. You know, and what teacher hasn't asked for these or complained that they aren't there? So it's taken them a long while to get it, and you can add them in, remove them, so they're pretty dynamic from what they tell us. I haven't seen it in practice yet, but that for me is crucial, because that whole process of creating subgroups so you can differentiate quickly and easily has been missing for too long, I think. Education Plus and Teaching and Learning Only. So the fundamentals one, if you're on fundamentals, you do not get that, but then you don't get all the kind of grading periods and lots of other things in there that come with the higher paid licenses. Any early years teachers, any primary school teachers, read along, which already exists. So you can go to readalong.google.com, and the website's there with hundreds and hundreds of books. It's really, really nice. I think you need to, there is an option to turn it on so your staff can see it, or it might be one that's potentially blocked, but it's great. There's loads of things. It is quite US, but actually we know from research, don't we, and we've known this for many decades now, that reading is reading. It's not about, it's almost like it doesn't matter about the quality, it matters that you are reading. So you can read a comic or you can read a piece of high literature, and they are both good practice. So I'm not thinking that this will change your reading scheme if you've already got one, but it's a really useful addition. And if I go on to the next slides, you can actually specify age. You can have books based on phonics. So if you're doing GH or PH or these kinds of things, you can go through and specify books based on that. You can actually get some support for Spanish being the second language in the US, so that might well expand out. There might be other languages coming soon. And you also get information about how they've done, which for me is really important. So you can, and then the last little step, based on what they've done so far, if you notice they're struggling with particular things, you can say, well, create me a story based on these things that this child's struggling with. So that kind of combined, I mean, there's like 5 or 6 slides there, all about read along. I think read along is a phenomenal tool. Like I said, I don't expect anyone to ever change their reading plan, not least because a lot of this will be in American English, so it won't be appropriate. But actually, all reading is good practice, and a great additional support. And the fact you can manage it through Google Classroom is really, really powerful, I think. But that's all of that read along in Classroom is through Education Plus and Teaching and Learning. Readalong.google.com website is just a website, so anyone can use that. There is also an app, and you can do some of that I've just explained in the app, but you need that on a mobile device, of course. Oh no, you don't. You can put it on a Chromebook now, can't you? So you might go to manage it that way if you don't have Education Plus or Teaching and Learning. We've already got interactive questions in YouTube in Google Classroom, and that's great. It works really well. I really like it. And as an ex-music teacher, it's a fantastic thing to be able to play that set work and actually pause it and say, right, what's the key? You know, what's this cadence and all those kinds of things. So it's a really useful tool for a music teacher, fantastically useful. But now using AI, it'll start to make suggestions about where the questions might be and what they should be. So the fact that they're just cutting that out. And I suspect, like all AI, it won't be a finished product. You'll, as the educator with the real experience, you'll say, well, they're great, but that, I wouldn't ever ask that question, or that phrasing is not right, or I also want a question about. So it won't be the finished product, but I bet, you know, 70–80% of it will be there. And that saves you time, gives you your Sunday afternoon back so you can be relaxed. I think that's the biggest thing for AI for me, is that it gives you time back so you can start to gather your thoughts. And it's as much about well-being as it is about anything else. I think, you know, if it's used properly and people really use it to help them save that time, then getting that time back will, you know, your staff will benefit hugely from that, I think. So if you haven't thought about Gemini licenses, it's definitely worth thinking about it, or at least using the Gemini prompt, and then we can have a conversation about the Gemini licenses later. Converting forms to practice sets has already been here for a little while, maybe 1 month or 2 months, not for terribly long, but actually you couldn't import the images, it didn't quite work, whereas you can now. You can put images in a practice set, and when you use forms, you can also add the images in, is my understanding of that. So that's great. That's fantastic. So that's nice, and we already know about practice sets. Bit more granularity in terms of the grading. Grading is Education Plus and Teaching and Learning only, but it'll give you a bit more information about scores. You can automatically say, well, any missing assignment, this is the default mark for it. You can do bulk marking, so it just allows that marking process to be speeded up a little bit, which is great. And the other thing about within those two tools, you've got grading periods, so you can set grading periods, you know, term 1, term 2, term 3, that kind of thing. The students now get to see that as well. Okay. Screencast we've talked about a number of times through the years. It's a great tool. You can record stuff, you know, so if you're demonstrating on your device, the students get to see it. It's a video that they can see. They get a transcript of your description. You can edit your transcript. In the past, when you edited your transcript, it was by paragraph, but you're going to get down to sentence editing, which is really good. Also, when the students saw the screencast, they could choose to change the language. And it's not a full list of Google languages, maybe about 15, 20, I think, at the minute, whereas you couldn't see those language transcriptions, whereas now you can. So there's a whole load of new kind of bits of functionality built into that, which is great news, because if you've got a Chromebook, that's a free tool. It's built into the Chrome OS environment within a Google device, yeah. Taking screenshots and screen videos has been there for a little while. Screenshots for ages, but videos for a little while. When you go to the video option, there's a drop down on the button in the middle. You choose the drop down, and you can change it from video to GIF. So you can create it converts it immediately to a GIF, which is really quite nice. That's already there. I tried that yesterday, actually, had a little play with it. So that's really neat. Yeah, GIFs are nice. They add a little bit of interest, don't they? Google for Education App Hub. If you're not aware, it's been there a long while, Google for Education App Hub. The link will take you to where it is. It's just a free site. It just tells you about all the apps, literally all the apps that connect to Google Workspace, until you give information about the pricing and all those kinds of things. So if you're wondering about what you want to do, you've also got filters, so you can think, I need an app that does this for this key stage 2 or whatever. Then you can go in here, you can filter and sort and get to where you need to be without having to go through them all. And you can specify free or paid and all that kind of stuff. So it's a great little place to start, because actually, if you're the admin person, you'll say, I'm nervous of allowing teachers to just try any blooming app, because some of them are fine and nothing will happen. But I'm sure you all know only too well that if you get free reign and you add something that's not particularly well built, you can create all sorts of problems on your device and other people's devices. So it's just not worth allowing complete free reign. And you need some kind of check, whereas you can go and look, at least get the details of what it's about. You can't install it still, and then once you know what it's about, you can then make your case to the technician to allow you to install it, and they can install it for you, so you can do it within a managed process, which is great. So that's been there for a little while. This is Education Plus only, and I was having a conversation about this very morning. 20 different signers for a single document, and up to 200 fields, and you've got signature, name, date, title, I think, and a text field. So you've got 5 fields now. It might even say in the text there. And it's fantastic. Creates that as a PDF and sends it out. What there currently isn't there isn't a critical path. So if you need signer 1 to sign before signer 2, my understanding is that you can't do that. They all get the same document and they get access just to their bits that they're allowed to sign. So they can sign in any sequence. So if you do have a specific sequence you need them signing in, then it doesn't quite do that yet. But I suspect it will pretty soon. And it is GDPR compliant. But if it's just like, you know, a job contract, then that's only going to be a single signature, isn't it? So that's relatively easy to do. So that's a great thing. So if you're using other tools that cost per envelope, he said, hinting at which one I'm talking about, then it ends up being quite expensive, doesn't it? Whereas this, if you've already paid for your Education Plus licenses, then this might well make your HR department very much happier. That's that one. More accessibility tools on Chromebooks. The voice in text to speech is improved, so that should sound better. The facial expression and head movement controls, I've yet to try that one out, but that for me sounds fantastic. So they've got, you know, motor skills issues with their hands, so actually be able to control things on the Chromebook with their head would be fantastic. And the optical character recognition for PDFs is also now built into Chromebooks, so you don't need a license or anything. It's just already built into Chromebooks, which is fantastic. You've got a dark view in the Google Classroom mobile app now. So if people prefer dark views, and I've got dark view on my screen, I think that the dark view makes it easy to read for everyone. So I just, as a standard now, very often go to dark view. Yeah, if you're in a very bright room, it clearly makes a difference, but it also reduces the eye strain because most of the screen is dark. And it also, if you've got reduced sight, seeing white text on black apparently is easier than black text on white. So it's definitely worth considering using it more than perhaps you have done in the past. So that's great. 51 new fonts. Handwriting, I wish there was a way to solve this. I've pointed people to the fonts in Google when people talk about handwriting, and you might well have experienced the same thing. And schools have got all such individual methods of teaching handwriting that very few seem happy with the fonts. The number of fonts that claim to be handwriting style fonts increasing all the time, and there's always a school that says, no, it's not quite the way we teach it. And I wish there was a way to solve it.
It's always the F, Paul. You can never get the F right to school policy. I remember running a whole staff meeting and arguments about how we were teaching an F.
Do either of those two fonts on the screen match it?
No, neither of those would match my last school's policy.
There must be, you think, what's going on? And there must be there's certainly hundreds, it could even be thousands of fonts now. So can we really not manage that? But and the other thing is also the joining of the letters, isn't it? That's a crucial
well, that's
part
the issue. It's the joining the F
and
the cursive and precursive. So you also need it to be, anyway, let's not derail into handwriting.
No, absolutely.
Area of interest for me.
but you know, 50 more one attempts they've got, so you might well find one that's a little bit better. So we might be getting there. Let's hope. Thanks for that, Tara. Okay. I've mentioned the Innovation Programme lots and lots. Dave and I spoke very effusively about how fantastic it was. I would say without doubt, it's the best PD I have ever had in my entire career, and my entire career is years long. So I've been around the houses quite a few times. There's only one Innovative Programme application window open left, which is Amsterdam. Closes on the 16th, so just before the end of term. So if you're still hovering, I would get your application in quick. You could always refuse it afterwards. If you're still not certain because of the costs or whatever, but do please think about all of that. That's really quite important, and it's fantastic. You will absolutely love it. That's a face-to-face one. The virtual one is closed now. So these are only English ones. If your first language isn't English, go onto the website. The link is on the Innovative Programme link on the top of this page. There might be others in your preferred language. I'm sure there's some in the Far East. I don't remember the dates for those, but it's all on the website. So you might find there's others if English isn't your first language.
Sorry, Paul.
Yeah.
Paul, Theo here.
Yeah, hi Theo.
Sorry, Paul. You always talk about this program, but I've never really understood what this is all about. Is it like training, or is it some sort of what is it about?
So you are invited to present a problem to Google, an education problem that you think needs solving. It can be anything. in the past, I've heard of people literally going into the Pacific to do workshops on use of technologies, and people have written books, people have developed apps, people have developed systems within their own school to support a particular thing. Like, there was someone developed an app just to request a 5-minute break from their lesson so they can nip to the loo for teachers. So it can be but it needs to be a problem that has genuinely not got a clear solution, or that you don't have a clear solution to.
Okay.
If they think the problem is suitable and they don't get a sense if you hint that there's a solution, they won't let you in. You mustn't do that. So even if you have got one, don't let them know. You apply. Then when you go for a 3-day intensive course. This is 13th to 11th, 4 days. And they will basically take you through a whole design process where they will look at your problem in a whole host of different ways and really make you thrash out what that problem is, and challenging you to think more beyond the way you would normally work about that problem is really, really fascinating. Once you've done that, you then get a year with a mentor support and with regular updates where you had to realize the project. So the hope is that those 4 days will get you to a better place, that you've got a much clearer idea of how you might approach this project. You then get supported for a year to try and attempt to do that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
It is a fantastic...
Do you mind me asking, Paul? But apologies for turning up late. I was on another call that overran, unfortunately.
That's fine.
What was you've done this? What was your?
So my original problem was to see if there's a way to create an add-on that if someone in the admin panel said, "Oh, I need to change that," that something would pop up and immediately say, "I mean, you've changed that, but there's an implication for these 4 things. Do you want to go and look at those 4 things before you make that decision?" So they could cross-reference any other setting where it might apply. And I started to build that. Then kind of within a few months, COVID happened and I completely turned around and the virtual staff room started. And this is the virtual staff room. We've changed its name now to Techie Tuesday and Workspace Wednesday, but it was the virtual staff room. And we met every day where everyone of all persuasions, whether they had the Teams curse, the Teams virus rather, from yesterday, or they were Google Workspace, they could come up and say, what does this new guidance from the government mean about devices and where the students should work and what can they do, and what, guidance about working Zooms or Meets or where's the button to do this. So from the macro to the micro, and we supported schools because we thought we need to do something. We can't just sit back and do nothing, because we were all right, we could keep working, but we needed to find a way to support schools. So we ran over 400 virtual staff rooms until we stopped and went to a monthly pattern. Yeah, where anyone could just turn up and ask some questions or just listen. And we had presentations from a whole host of people in those 400 times. So that became my project. What was your project, Dave?
My initial one was around digitizing student voice in schools. All of our schools had, well, certainly the one that I was based at the time, it was a very much a paper-based student voice feedback experience, and we talked about the benefits of that. And I was looking initially at developing an app to do that, and ended up just doing it. We digitized it and made it work through Google Sites and Looker Studio to get the data out for admins. But then I too pivoted and set up the Learning Dust podcast. That's kind of, I was having a lot of conversations around techies not necessarily being good communicators with school leaders or teachers even. And our podcast tries to promote better working relationships between techies, teachers and school leaders. And that's in its 5th season now, so 5 years almost we've been going with that.
That's Learning Dust. Excellent podcast. If I remember right, wasn't there a workshop about podcasting on the day?
Yeah. I mean, that one of the things. I mean, Paul's done a really good job of explaining it. But one of the other things that you get is access to Googlers. So you're working with 36 like-minded individuals who have come from all over the world anyway, plus some fantastic facilitator staff and the likes of, I mean, it was Dean Stokes, wasn't it, when we did it? But I'm involved in that now. You get a coach. Yeah, we work in little groups of 6. I had Ollie Trussell, lucky enough to have Ollie Trussell, who now works at Google, as my coach. But also you get access to to real live Googlers who were working on products. So we saw some excellent insight into Google Earth, for example, whilst we were there. But they also they encourage us, and I remember fondly, Paul, your session with the ukulele. We were all encouraged in our own interests, weren't we? So
I had 10 ukuleles. I think it was 20 ukuleles couriered to the venue, so I could do my workshop.
But it was a tremendous experience, and I second Paul's comment about it being the best CPD we've ever had. It's amazing. If anybody gets the opportunity, I would strongly recommend they give it a go.
Yeah, I'm going to hand over to Tara in a moment. If anyone's thinking about it, before I hand over to Tara, apply. And if you think, well, no, I don't want it, well, then you say, oh, thanks, I can't make it now. And because they'll have backups, so they'll invite somebody else, so they don't lose anything. But you won't. It'll be another year or more before they offer some more dates. That's the reality. So if you're thinking about it slightly, get the application in, and then decide whether you really do want to do it afterwards. And we can talk more about it if you want to know more details. I'm more than happy to do that.
And feel free to reach out. If you want some advice, feel free to reach out to Paul, I, or pretty much any other innovator. We'll always be happy to help people with their applications.
Absolutely.
Is it onerous, the application? Is it 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour?
It takes a few hours. There's an element you have to frame your issue. You have to interview somebody about it. No, it's not quite that bad. And you also have to create a video as well. It's a 90-second video that you create talking about it. So it's not
level 1, level 2 as well.
Yeah, it's not throw it together in an hour. It did take some significant work to put together. Yeah. And having acted as a scorer, I've seen good and bad applications. So don't waste your time by just throwing something in thinking, oh, it'd be right, because it won't be.
No, and it was my 3rd attempt before I got in.
First attempt for me, but I don't like to talk about that.
Yeah, but my 2nd attempt, I was working on it, and I'd had a week from hell, and actually fell asleep and missed the deadline. I was actually just finishing it off, and literally, you don't want to know what the week was like. It was just the week from hell. Not work, actually. It was just personal things. I was just exhausted, and it was just the wrong time of my life, really. So technically 3 times, but only actually really 2. But anyway, so I'm going to hand over to Chris. Go get Dave.
I was going to say you ended up in the right cohort for you, and I think that fate plays a part, doesn't it? And you met some wonderful people and me before you say that.
You know, you are a wonderful person. I'm in a good mood today. You are a wonderful person, Dave. I'm delighted to have met you. Dave and I were in the same cohort, London 19. So I am going to hand over to Chris now. He's going to introduce Tara and explain about how the rest of the session is going to go.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. As mentioned in previous messages and yesterday, we've got Tara. We've also got Pete as well. Nice to see Pete join us. Hi, Pete. From Clever. We have partnered with Clever from pretty much the start of the year. I think the initial sort of conversations and whatnot took place at BET. From C Learning's perspective, we only like to deal with companies that offer, a viable solution.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Oh, what was that, Paul? Missed that?
I said bribes. I was joking.
Bribes. Yeah. Well, that comes later. Dave Leonard's always saying Chris is only in it for the money. So companies that we believe offer an approach to something that works well and will benefit students and teachers. We have a very limited number of sort of third-party applications that we offer, but Clever seem to fit the bill for us. So very kindly today, Tara is going to give a quick run through of this particular product. Pete's on for any technical questions and queries, and then I'll jump in once Tara's spoken, just regarding a very special sort of offer we've got if anybody's interested in potentially moving this forward. So over to you, Tara.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was really interesting, actually, because I don't know if you noticed, and I'm not going to do lots of slides. I'd rather come up and I'll talk you through things. But very often when you were doing those ISTE slides, did you see that Clever was right up at the top there next to Google? So Clever have just been named after Google the 2nd most used EdTech resource. So it would have been a big relationship and lots of work done together at ISTE. And Clever does work beautifully with Google and with Chromebooks. It's a solution to get students quickly to all of those fantastic things you've been showing us there, Paul. So you have to imagine, and I'm sure most of the people on this call, you're quite far on with some of your digital progress and what you're showing students. But we've been working with schools up and down the country this year, and we still find there are quite a few common problems. Getting logged into Chromebooks using long, complicated school email addresses and passwords, workarounds, schools kind of trying to solve the problem, maybe using shared passwords. But then we know that they're not meeting the guidance from keeping children safe in education, or even, and if I could see your faces still, I know you'd be shocked, we are speaking to schools that have they're avoiding using Chromebooks because logging in and getting into the applications is just proving too difficult. And sometimes in Key Stage 1 can take up to 20 minutes for our students. So Clever have been busy using badges in the States for, I think it was 2013, it could have been 15 when they first really got going, and they've just surpassed 3 billion badge logins. So that is where students can open their Chromebooks, they can wave, it looks like a QR code, but it is not. It's a physical passcode. So it sits on top like a sidecar to the email address and password to the students' individual identities. And with the wave of a badge, they are able to access the device, first of all, so they can get into their Chromebooks, but then they can get in and through to the apps. So I'll show you it in action. A few kids, these are year 6 kids. Most of these kids had got to the point when they could just about, or they could certainly log in with their email address and password, but we still wanted to reduce that lost learning time in the classroom. And you'll see sort of how happy they are.
It worked. Are you on? But yeah, it was lovely. You see that? The little tick.
So you can kind of see on the screen there was the camera. I'll show you that in a moment, and that's what will sit on top. Pete will explain the technical requirements in Google Admin, but it means that we can have this instant access to devices, and then beyond using the badge to get into the Chromebook, I'll just skip through here to what we call the portal, and that's where we can organize all the popular applications that your students use, and they can click straight on. They've been identified with their Google identities and can use single sign-on, or we can add additional applications to that portal. It's completely, you can customize it to suit Key Stage 1, Key Stage 2, or any of your students' needs. So it's about how can we get that learning time back, reduce those frustrations with logging in, and make sure we're securely getting in quickly to devices and to apps. So I will instead, let me come back to here and stop sharing. And I will show don't tell, as we say in education. So I've got a Chromebook here. I can wake it up. It's really great if we have shared devices. I don't know how many, some of you will be lucky enough perhaps to have one-to-one Chromebooks, and perhaps you're okay and you're getting the children there with the logging on. But very often we see shared devices. And so even in any one lesson, we can lose some time because one student's logging in, then the next student's. There we go. So I know it'll be fuzzy on the screen. That's like the matrix, a screen inside a screen inside a screen, but it's just a case of using the Clever badge, a little wave in front of the screen, you'll get the green tick. For a lot of kind of educators and teachers I'm speaking to, where it makes sense to them is they think about sort of the long list of passwords for different apps, usually in the back of books or in homework diaries and shared. And effectively, in one child's book, you can just replace all that access information with one. We've got this one badge, takes you through to the portal, and then you can drop some of the most popular apps. You've got Google Classroom, Class Dojo, Canva, any of your applications that use Google Pathway and single sign-on, and they're straight through with a click. So no more typing. I think
we've just seen Google Hub, which I've just been Googling actually and been on. Interestingly, because they're kind of they're a little bit behind on what we can do. So obviously Google Hub's great, but it doesn't start to attempt to differentiate by year group or by key stage, or it's not it's not personalizable in that respect yet. They'll probably catch up, in which case we're miles on. And what I want to do is kind of broaden the discussion out. So what we're showing you is the very simplest kind of, it's what Clever are well known for in the US and globally. And then we're also well known for the rostering piece. So the piece after that, which is where we're sort of provisioning the apps, etc. This product was developed for the UK market and we've kind of spoken with, what is it, probably several hundred schools now, isn't it? Primary schools and trusts over the UK. What we've been doing is speaking with the educators. So we've, rather than come at it from kind of this angle, which is more technically capable and network managers, IT directors, etc., we were working with actual staff and kind of bottom up. And it's just an invitation to you to maybe revisit, if you haven't for a while, the classrooms and sort of to understand access problems that are being had. So we're not exaggerating to say that some people are extremely frustrated, but what we have noticed, interestingly, and maybe for some of your projects for the likes of the Innovator Program, is and Dave alluded to this, that sort of communication piece between the sort of the frontliners and the sort of network staff. And there does seem to be a huge disconnect. So quite often we've spoken to the network staff and they're convinced that there isn't a problem. Go and speak to the teachers and they'll tell you otherwise. And it is difficult to put solutions in. I'll show you quickly where this lives in, which won't be any surprise to most of you.
Yeah, I think you were right on that, Pete. When we're talking to the schools, usually it's assistant deputy heads and they're trying to solve the problem of lost learning time. It's definitely big in a lot of school development plans. And when they speak to staff and they look at the computing curriculum or this area of the curriculum, usually top of the priority is we're not covering the digital strategy in the way that we want to, or accessing all of those tools that seem like, yes, we want to get there, because we've got this first barrier at the moment of getting the computers off the trolley and getting the children logged in.
Sure. You've got my screen right. You can see.
Okay.
Yeah, we can see that.
So just here, it'll be no surprise to you that it's in security authentication. For those of you, I'm sure almost everybody, if not everybody, has already done SSO with third party. I just wanted to show you there are two ways of setting it up, which you'll, again, maybe no surprise, but you can use this we call it the organization slot, where you're just applying it to the organization slot, and then you can select which OUs you fire that off to. But for most of you with multiple schools and multiple instances, we end up using these third-party SSO profiles. And what you end up with is an SSO profile per school for a couple of reasons. So that you can print and manage badges on a school-by-school basis, because you can imagine you don't want them to be logging in and managing other people's badges. There's the option within Clever to kind of delete all or erase all badges or reset all badges or individual badges. And then, of course, the other reason for that is to be able to power the portal that we talked about. So this portal to the Google piece, and like Google Hub, it's personalizable, but it will take through any of those Google credentials. So you are obviously badging in with your Google credentials and identity. So it will take you straight through where you've got that Google single sign-on set up. They seem to be more ubiquitous. What we've noticed down at primary is that there are a couple of very popular apps like Timetables, Rockstars, like EdShed, that don't currently have login with Google. One huge thing to encourage you all to do is to use your weight to actually get to move the suppliers more towards the Google sign-in, because I think it's incredibly useful, and as an ecosystem, it'll just make things easier. It seems like up at secondary level, we're seeing more Microsoft identities being used as the kind of standard access, which they do seem to be set up and people seem to be fairly competent with at the moment. A couple of points on data ingestion in terms of getting your student data. So we can do things like Salamander, Locker for that. We can do automated SFTP. We've got full integration with Arbor, and we're working on SIMs, and you can just do a regular sort of CSV upload. So there are a few options, and I just wanted to, although it's not, so you kind of got pure Clever Go here, which is the simplest kind of entry point, which we designed for Google schools and specifically younger learners. For those of you with older learners and maybe higher ed, and we can obviously the Clever system does a graduated login and security protocol all the way up to sort of multi-factor authentication. So that, which is a different conversation, but I didn't want to give you the impression that this was all that we've got. And working with C Learning, we can help to investigate more. If you've got more needs than just this, then we can certainly work together on that.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Tara. Thank you,
Thank you.
Pete, for that whistle-stop tour there, but incredibly informative and really nice to see. Yeah, that's superb. Yeah, just out of interest, I will, of course, put all this in the documentation that we send out afterwards, as Pete mentioned there. If anybody's keen to learn a little bit more or another demo from Tara there, I can certainly connect you up. We'd certainly be keen to get involved in those conversations as well. The offer that we have, which we've been able to secure with Clever, is for a select number of users. We're able to offer a 2-for-1, if you like. So you would sign up to a 2-year commitment to this. You would pay for the first year. Prices actually for Clever Go sort of start at £250 as well, £250 based on the number of users. It's not an expensive product, but the amount of, you know, as Paul mentioned with Gemini earlier there, the amount of time that you get back, again, if you're saving 5, 10, 15, 20% of your lesson time, every single lesson, getting your kids signed
some
in.
schools we've said, Chris, when you talk about that price point and it's the price of maybe a Chromebook or the hardware you've got, by putting this in, you can share devices more easily. You can get more out of the existing hardware by plugging this in. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So great point. Yeah. So you'd pay for the first year, second year, completely free, which we love. Everybody likes a bit of free. So again, if you want to, you could say £125, you know, per year for 2 years, if you like. The other thing as well, we've seen a big increase in the use of converted devices. So Windows devices converted to Chrome OS Flex with the Chrome management licenses. Those devices tend to be less personalized as well. So they tend to be the devices that sit in a classroom that anybody can use if they've not got a Chromebook, or you know, that school doesn't have a one-to-one. So that would be an ideal device again for Clever Go, because you may have 10 different users in the day using that particular device. So yeah, great stuff. So yeah, happy to send those details out. Tara and Pete, really appreciate you coming on today. I know it's you're both very busy, but it's greatly appreciated. Anybody?
I love the pace. I love the here are the updates, bang bang bang. Because you don't want to sit there. Nice.
I said to I wanted to be certain that you had plenty of time. If we didn't have visitors, I might have taken a little bit more time.
I said to Tara, it's relaxed atmosphere. It's great. Yeah.
For me, I was delighted to see the Year 6s doing it, and there is that delight of this thing that it's just so easy. One, the fact that you can customize the dashboard so that the students get to the tools that they want without having to go anywhere, and two, for emerging readers, that it's actually icon driven, because we are visually literate before we are text literate. So of course, you know, a primary school teacher will have the text there that says Drive or Canva or My Maths or whatever it happens to be, but they will have the icon as well, and that's what the students will navigate by. So they get to their work environment that much quicker, because they aren't having to read text that they've only just learned how to read.
Or one of the common, and you can understand a long email address being written on the whiteboard. And for so many learners, they're already out. If we know about the percentage, 1 in 10 of our children could be dyslexic, to have to try to look up at the board, type that in, try and find the website, you've lost the child before they've accessed the lesson with that task. And again, they might have been your best coders in the room, but they can't get to the website because there's a barrier there. So it's a really important point about that visual. And from the moment of badge, it's just clicking and then you're in.
I think there's an opportunity as well for possibly, you know, in preppy and whatnot with vocational courses where, you know, you may be, I don't know, electricians, or you may have people running courses on mechanics or something like that. Fantastic, maybe great with the hands-on, may not be so savvy when it comes to things like passwords. So again, get them in, get them on, you know, just remove that barrier for people to start to engage and you know, and learn. I think it's fantastic. Excellent.
Absolutely. Any questions for Tara or Peter before we sign off today from anyone else on the call?
Not so much a question, just maybe some advocacy for them in terms of, I can just say how great the support is in getting this set up. Pete and I did a little bit of work together quite a few months ago, and the support that was offered in getting the setup within your Google domain was exemplary. Really, really high quality and persistent, even when I wasn't persistent, which is exactly what I needed. So no, I think it's great, and I think we talked about this last week, didn't we? I think the potential of being able to use something like this for multi-factor authentication for learners, as and when that comes in to being required by the RPA insurance, I think really comes into its own then. So not only, I mean, we looked at it in terms of our very young learners, in terms of being able to get them on and alongside a drive to unique usernames and passwords, but for students with special educational needs, for those who have English as a second language or maybe are new to English, it's tremendously beneficial to them as well. But I just wanted to say to everybody, if you think it looks a bit scary, if going into the admin panel, because this isn't necessarily a technical audience that will be watching this video back, if you think that looks scary, don't worry about it. It's not too complicated to set up, and somebody from Clever, be that Pete or someone else, will hold your hand every step of the way.
Cheers, Dave.
And that's really important, Dave.
That.
It's really important, Dave, to understand that the technical bit, yes, it's technical and Pete would support, but actually the managing of the portal, which should be teacher-led or somebody within the school, in the same way distributing the badges is, that is very user-friendly. And you can kind of drag and drop icons into your, you know, if you break it down, Key Stage 1, Key Stage 2, we're going to try Canva in Key Stage 2, see how that goes. We might add it into Key Stage 1. That can be really easily managed from a school perspective.
Our observation has been that what's not being managed, so for those who maybe have sorted the access problem, they think they've got the access problem sorted, but then they are limited to, it doesn't even automatically open the browser often on kind of logging in. So quite often they'll have to then click the browser, then they'll have to go and choose what bookmarks they want, and it's not visual. So some have got Google Sites, but again, they're not even firing up the Google site when they on login. So that process afterwards, and I don't know who's responsible for it, because kind of it really probably should be a teaching and learning workflow issue, but it seems like it often gets lost and gets missed. So just for that, you might want to reflect on for your various organizations on what's happening when you're logged in, and then for the teaching and learning, they do want to control where they're going and eliminate distractions, but also promote the next thing, or promote, you know, stuff like the Gemini stuff that's fantastic. It's just knowing how to get there, isn't it? You know, something like your read along, you can have your little link there, which people are failing to do. So I guess you guys at C Learning probably look at that process a little bit sometimes. It just seems to often have been missed out. So I wanted to flag that for what it's worth.
Absolutely. Excellent. Thank you very much for that. Any other questions generally about me talking too fast to get through all my updates, or anything else that people want to ask before we sign off? We've got 3 minutes to go still.
Yeah, I missed the first 20 minutes, Paul. Can you run through all that with me again, mate? But no, that's fine. That's fine.
You know, that's it. You know the way it works. Yeah, it's the drug dealer model. If you're not there with the money in your hand, then you just don't get it, mate. That's the way it works.
You see, if Paul had turned on the Gemini note-taking for this meeting, you would have been able to read the AI-generated summary, wouldn't you, at the beginning?
Yeah.
I was telling you, Dave, though, I was worried about the bias in Gemini, because I was on a call the other day. 4 times it said that I was going to make coffee.
And how many times did you make a coffee?
Not once. I didn't even mention it.
Telling you, you need to be reminded.
Yeah, you need to take the hint.
I don't even drink coffee. I drink tea, guys. So Gemini's got some work to do.
No. I was told off by a female for suggesting she made the tea when I was demonstrating Gemini note-taking. And I said, it is possible that there's bias there. We've all got bias, I accept that. I said, but actually I chose you because you're the only person with the camera on, because everyone else had turned the camera off. So I saw her face and just chose her name. And she's okay.
Yeah.
But she didn't make me a coffee, but then it was remote, so I can forgive her. Perhaps she did, perhaps she's just sitting there going cold. Who knows?
Who knows?
There we go. Anyway, so if there's nothing else from anyone, that was great. Thank you very much for your time today. Lovely to see you all.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you,
we'll see
Heather.
you in September.